All right, let's dive in. We're going to talk about one of the planet's most valuable players, an ecosystem that, honestly, is often overlooked. But it's quietly working overtime, day in and day out, to keep our world healthy and in balance. Yep, we're talking about wetlands.
So before we really get into the nitty-gritty, let me ask you a quick question. What do you think acts like a giant sponge, a water filter, and a nursery, all at the same time? I mean, something that can soak up massive floods, purify our water, and be a safe home for countless little critters? You guessed it, the answer is a wetland.
Okay, so let's properly get to know our hero here. What actually is a wetland? What makes it tick? Well, at its heart, it's this really fascinating in-between place. Caught right in that middle ground between totally dry land and deep open water. So, the official definition goes something like this. A wetland is an ecosystem that's covered in water, either all the time or just for part of the year. And that water, well, that's the absolute key. It creates this really unique low-oxygen environment, which leads to all these amazing natural processes that really you just don't see anywhere else.
So, what are the key ingredients? What's the recipe here? Well, first, obviously, you need water. It can be fresh, salty, or somewhere in between. Now, this water creates these special hydric soils, which is just a fancy way of saying they don't have much oxygen. Most plants would just give up and die here. But this is where the magic really kicks in. It makes room for hydrophytic plants, these incredible specialized plants that have figured out how to thrive in soggy, waterlogged soil. And the final piece? They're usually pretty shallow. We're talking less than 3 meters deep, which, as you'll see, is super important.
And you know what's wild? The sheer variety of them. When you hear the word wetland, you might immediately picture, a classic spooky swamp. But that's just scratching the surface. If you go inland, way away from the coast, you've got marshes, huge river floodplains, even these really cool, mysterious bogs.
Okay, now let's head over to the coast, because the diversity just keeps on coming. You've got estuaries where fresh water from rivers mixes with the ocean's salt water. You have those absolutely critical mangrove forests that act as a shield for our shores. You've got lagoons, and get this one might surprise you. Even some coral reefs are technically classified as wetlands. How cool is that?
And it's not just Mother Nature doing all the work here. We humans actually build wetlands too, a lot of the time without even really thinking of them that way. I mean, think about it. Those vast rice paddies that feed billions of people, man-made wetlands. Reservoirs, fish ponds, yep, all of them. They're totally woven into the fabric of our lives.
All right, so now we've got a handle on what a wetland is. Let's get to the really good stuff. What do they actually do? And trust me, the list is long. We're going to dive into what scientists call ecosystem services, but I think it's way more fun to think of them as a wetland's superpowers.
First up, superpower number 1. Wetlands are basically the planet's flood shield. When you get a huge storm or a river starts to overflow, they act like these enormous natural sponges. They just soak up all that extra water and hold on to it, which seriously cuts down on flooding downstream and stops precious soil from getting washed away.
What's their next trick? Well, they're basically nature's water purification system. Think about it. As water slowly winds its way through all those plants and soil, it's like passing through a superfine filter. It traps all kinds of gunk, sediments, pollutants. They're especially good at grabbing the extra fertilizers from farm runoff. They can even break down some really nasty toxins. The result? Much cleaner, healthier water flowing out the other side.
And they're also what I like to call the nursery of life. Seriously, wetlands are just buzzing with energy. They provide the perfect mix of food, water, and shelter, making them an ideal place for so many species to have their babies and raise their young. In fact, a lot of the fish and shellfish that end up on our plates, they got their start in the safe, protected waters of a wetland. And for animals that are threatened or endangered, these places are often their last, best hope for survival.
And the list just keeps going. They slowly leak water back into the ground, which recharges our underground water supplies. The plants along the coast act like a living wall, protecting us from erosion. They give us stuff we use every day, like food and materials. And, of course, they're just amazing places for recreation, for getting out and connecting with nature. They are, without a doubt, ecological powerhouses.
But, and you knew this was coming, right? Here's the tough part of the story. Like any great superhero, our wetlands are in trouble. They're facing some serious threats. These incredibly productive yet fragile ecosystems are in a state of crisis all around the world. And the scale of this crisis, it's just staggering. Just look at the United States. Over half of the country's original wetlands are gone,
destroyed. And in some states, it's way worse. We're talking over 90% loss. Think about that. That's a massive failure of our natural infrastructure. It's just vanished.
So what's causing all this destruction? Well, it's really an attack from all sides. The number one culprit? Draining them. We drain these vital areas to make way for farms and cities. Then you've got pollution, runoff from fertilizers, pesticides, and sewage. Then we go and mess with the water flow itself by building dams and channels. And if all that wasn't enough, you could throw invasive species and the huge pressures of climate change right on top. It's pushing these ecosystems right to the edge.
But the story doesn't end there. This isn't all doom and gloom. There is a global rescue mission happening right now. All over the world, people are finally starting to wake up and recognize just how valuable wetlands are, and they're working hard to protect the ones we have left and even restore the ones we've lost.
And a huge piece of this global effort, a real cornerstone, is an international agreement called the Ramsar Convention. Its mission is actually pretty simple, but it's incredibly powerful. Protect and conserve wetlands, make sure we're using them in a smart, sustainable way, and just stop the bleeding, stop them from disappearing.
So this whole thing kicked off way back in 1971. The treaty was signed in a city in Iran called Ramsar, hence the name. And to mark that big day, February 2nd is now celebrated every single year as World Wetland Day. It's kind of a global reminder that we're all in this together, trying to protect these incredibly important places.
So, what does it take for a wetland to get this special, internationally important status? How do you make the cut? Well, the rules are pretty clear. It has to do one of a few things. It needs to be a safe haven for vulnerable or endangered species, or be a major hotspot for the biodiversity of the whole region. Or, and this one's amazing, it has to regularly support huge numbers of waterbirds. We're talking 20,000 or more birds hanging out at once. Okay, to really hammer home just how special and unique these places are, let's clear up something that trips a lot of people up. You see a body of water, you might think, oh, that's a lake. But a wetland is a totally different beast. So, let's put them head to head. Wetland versus lake. Let's see how they compare. And wow, the differences are pretty stark, right? That shallowness we talked about, that's the wetland's secret weapon. It allows for so much sunlight to get through, which fuels incredible productivity and supports way more biodiversity than the deep, dark, cold waters of a lake. And when it comes to the superpowers, flood control, waste treatment, it's not even a contest. Wetlands are just in a completely different league. And hey, here's a final little tip you can take with you. A super simple way to tell two of the most common wetlands apart. If you look around and see a bunch of woody trees, you're probably in a swamp. If it's mostly soft, grassy plants and reeds, you're in a marsh. Simple as that. It's a little distinction, but it tells you a ton about the place you're in.
So, there you have it. Wetlands are these quiet, unassuming heroes. They're out there, 24/7, filtering our water, shielding us from floods, acting as nurseries for so much life. They protect our world in so many ways we don't even think about. Which really leaves us with just one big question to ponder. Are we doing enough to protect them?